Have you ever noticed how, like, a highly stressful week doesn't just exhaust your mind, but it actually seems to physically manifest in your body?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you know the exact feeling we're talking about, right? You're up against some massive deadline or maybe navigating a personal crisis, and suddenly,
Your shoulders are just completely tied in knots.
exactly, or your digestion goes completely off the rails, or you get this tension headache that just, refuses to let up.
It's because we all intuitively know that emotional stress leaves a real physical footprint.
Right. But today, we're going to explore a fascinating and, well, frankly, an incredibly intense example of this mind-body connection.
Yeah, it's an area of medicine that absolutely forces us to look past superficial symptoms. We have to examine the very real chemical bridges between human psychology, our nervous system, and our immune system.
So the mission for this deep dive is to answer a highly specific, vital question. Can stress actually trigger the autoimmune response in a chronic, severe skin condition called lichen sclerosus?
Or LS for
Okay.
short.
Right, LS. And to figure this out, we aren't just looking at like standard dermatology. We are pulling from a really diverse stack of sources today.
We're crossing clinical guidelines from the UK, the BASHH guidelines, with insights from pelvic floor therapists.
Plus, cutting edge research from the Coyle Institute, resources from the Lichen Sclerosus Support Network, the Ego Journal of Gynecology, and even holistic dermatology notes.
Because treating something like LS really requires looking at the whole system, not just the surface.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're basically looking at how invisible emotional weight translates into very real physical cellular chaos.
That's a great way to put it.
But I mean, before we can understand how stress triggers the immune system, we need to establish what the immune system is actually doing to the body when someone has lichen sclerosus.
Nice. So lichen sclerosus is a chronic inflammatory autoimmune skin condition.
Okay.
And while it can occasionally appear on the back or the shoulders or the breasts, it primarily targets the anogenital region.
And in women, it frequently forms a very distinct figure of eight pattern, right? Around the vulva and the anus.
Exactly. And the demographics of who actually develops this condition are highly specific. We see what is called a bimodal peak in the medical data.
Wait, what does bimodal peak mean in this context? Meaning it primarily strikes in two distinct waves of a person's life.
Yes, exactly. So the first peak is prepubescent girls, and the second, much larger peak is postmenopausal women.
Oh, wow. So there's a hormonal link there.
Definitely. The underlying factor seems to be significant hormonal shifts, particularly low estrogen, which just creates a really vulnerable environment in the tissue.
And current estimates say it affects about 1 in 100 women.
Though, the broad clinical consensus is that this number is a massive underestimation.
Really? Why is that?
Well, it's so frequently misdiagnosed as a persistent yeast infection, or, people are simply too embarrassed by the location of the symptoms to seek help.
That makes total sense. And it can also affect men too, right?
It can, usually uncircumcised men and children as well, but the vast majority of patients navigating this are women.
And the physical symptoms are just devastating.
They really are.
We are talking about an unrelenting, maddening itch that goes all the way down to the cellular level.
Yeah, and the skin actually undergoes atrophy,
Ugh.
taking on this really fragile parchment-like or cellophane paper appearance.
Patients develop these white, porcelain-like plaques, and they get severe tearing from just basic movement.
And eventually that leads to sclerosis, which is a deep hardening and scarring of the tissue.
So to understand the mechanics of why that scarring happens, we have to look at the autoimmune mechanism itself.
Right, because in LS, the body's T cells become autoreactive.
Meaning they attack the body.
Exactly. Instead of fighting off foreign invaders like viruses or bacteria,
Yeah.
they turn inward. They start attacking the body's own healthy tissues.
And specifically, research shows a high presence of autoantibodies attacking something called extracellular matrix protein 1, or ECM1.
Which is essentially the biological glue holding the skin's structural integrity together.
It's like friendly fire destroying the mortar between the bricks of a house.
That is the perfect analogy.
Without that mortar, the bricks just crumble. The skin loses all its resilience and tears at the slightest friction.
Exactly.
But hang on, there's a contradiction here that is really bothering me.
Oh, what's that?
Well, our sources point out strong links to the HLA-DQ7 gene, plus high comorbidity with other autoimmune issues like thyroid disease.
Right, there's a strong genetic component.
So if the genetics are already there, and the DNA is already programmed to create this vulnerability, why are we talking about stress? Doesn't the DNA just do what it's programmed to do?
Well, If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Hmm.
you have to think of your genetics as the blueprint of that house you just mentioned.
Okay, go on.
Having the HLA-DQ7 gene, or a family history of autoimmune disease, means your house was built with highly flammable mortar. The susceptibility is built right into the structure. But a house doesn't just spontaneously combust. You still need a catalyst, a spark, to ignite that immune misfire.
Ah, and that spark is where the emotional stress to physical flare pipeline begins.
Exactly.
So let's trace exactly how, like, a bad day at work or chronic anxiety translates into a localized immune attack on the vulva.
It all starts with the autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
When you experience chronic emotional stress, your sympathetic nervous system, which drives your classic fight or flight response, it stays constantly engaged.
Your brain perceives a threat, whether that threat is a literal tiger or just an overflowing email inbox.
Yeah, the brain doesn't really know the difference, so it floods your system with stress hormones. And the primary driver here is cortisol.
Cortisol,
Yeah.
the famous stress hormone that gets blamed for basically everything from belly fat to insomnia.
And usually, in short, acute bursts, cortisol is actually incredibly helpful. It's highly anti-inflammatory.
Oh,
Yeah. But when you are chronically stressed day after day, that constant, relentless release of cortisol completely changes the dynamic. It leads to what we call receptor downregulation.
receptor downregulation.
Essentially, your immune cells are being yelled at by cortisol for so long that they just put in earplugs. They become completely deaf to the signal.
Oh, wow. So they stop listening to the anti-inflammatory message.
Exactly.
Mm.
This leads to incredibly high levels of systemic inflammatory markers in the blood because the body just loses its ability to regulate its own immune response.
So the immune system gets stuck in the on position.
Yes.
The research calls this a Th1 or T helper 1 inflammatory response.
Right. The immune system has different defense modes, and Th1 is essentially the body's aggressive seek and destroy mode.
So a taxed dysfunctional immune system leads directly to a flare-up.
Exactly. The autoreactive T cells go into overdrive, seeking out that ECM1 protein and causing the intense itching, burning, and tissue sensitivity.
But wait, I have to question the mechanics of this again.
Okay, shoot.
We just established that the body's own cortisol stops working, and that's what causes the inflammation.
Right.
But the gold standard treatment for LS is an ultra-potent steroid cream like clobetasol.
Yes, it is.
And clobetasol is a synthetic corticosteroid. So how is it that our body's own cortisol is the culprit causing the flare, but a synthetic cortisol cream is the cure?
That is one of the great paradoxes of the human immune system. But you have to look at the delivery method and the concentration.
Okay, so how are they different?
Acute synthetic steroids, like a topical clobetasol ointment, are highly targeted. They deliver a massive, localized dose directly to the skin to calm an immediate blazing fire.
So it's overwhelming the local receptors to force them to shut down the inflammation.
Exactly. But chronic, systemic, naturally high cortisol from relentless emotional stress acts like a slow-burning acid over time.
Oh, wait.
It exhausts the entire regulatory system, making the whole body highly susceptible to those autoimmune misfires.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We've zoomed out to the systemic hormones in the nervous system.
Right.
Now we need to zoom all the way into the microscopic cellular level to see exactly what this inflammatory fire is doing to the skin.
Yeah, and this brings us to a concept called oxidative stress.
Oxidative stress, what exactly is that?
Well, oxidative stress is the physical bridge between the systemic inflammation in your blood and the actual structural damage to your skin.
Okay.
By definition, oxidative stress occurs when there is a critical imbalance in your body between free radicals and antioxidants.
And free radicals are highly unstable molecules that are a natural byproduct of cellular metabolism, right? But they skyrocket during an inflammatory response.
Exactly.
So if we stick with our fire metaphor, if the inflammation is the fire burning the house down, the free radicals are the flying, smoldering embers landing on everything nearby.
That's a really vivid way to picture it. And the sources, specifically from the Coil Institute and others, highlight that the high levels of inflammation in untreated LS lead directly to this massive shower of embers.
And those embers cause severe structural damage.
They do. Oxidative stress directly damages cellular DNA and causes something called the peroxidation of lipids.
Peroxidation of lipids. Lipids are the essential fats that make up our cell membranes, right?
Yeah, so when those undergo peroxidation, they're essentially being degraded and destroyed.
Wait. So the abstract emotional stress triggers the nervous system,
Yes.
which misfires the immune system,
Right.
which creates oxidative stress, which literally degrades the fats and proteins in the skin.
What's fascinating here is exactly that cascade. The abstract concept of stress results in a measurable physical breakdown of matter in a highly localized area of the body.
That is wild.
And this cellular chaos is what creates the devastating physical symptoms. The oxidative damage causes epidermal atrophy.
And that's the fragile, paper-thin surface skin that tears easily.
Exactly. And beneath that, it causes dermal sclerosis, the hardened, scarred layers underneath where the tissue has lost its elasticity.
And the damage doesn't stop at scarring.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't.
Because this ongoing DNA damage, this relentless shower of cellular embers, is precisely why untreated lichen sclerosus carries a 4 to 5% lifetime risk of developing squamous cell carcinoma, which is vulvar cancer.
Right. The cells are taking so much damage so constantly that eventually the DNA replication process makes an error and they mutate.
Which really underscores a critical point for anyone navigating this condition. Treating the inflammation isn't just about daily comfort or stopping the itch.
No, it is active, vital cancer prevention.
And just knowing that cancer risk introduces an entirely new layer of emotional weight, it's a terrifying biological loop.
It really is.
But understanding that loop is actually the key to breaking it, because if the nervous system is driving this fire, it also holds the power to put it out.
Absolutely.
But before we get to the solutions, we have to look at how the physical symptoms themselves cause massive psychological stress.
Yeah, we can't ignore that part.
I mean, if you are listening to this right now and you suffer from LS, this is the part where you are probably nodding along.
Because the daily physical reality of LS is severe. Studies show that 79% of women with LS suffer from chronic vulvar pain.
79%. That's huge.
And as the disease progresses, the sclerosis and scarring can cause introital stenosis.
And that is a literal narrowing of the vaginal opening as the tissues fuse together, right?
Yes. The labial minora can resorb entirely, and the clitoris can actually become buried under rigid scar tissue.
Which makes physical intimacy incredibly painful, a condition known clinically as dyspareunia, or sometimes entirely impossible.
Exactly. And to make matters worse, there is a physical reaction called the Koebner phenomenon.
The Koebner phenomenon, what is that?
Well, it means that physical trauma to the skin actually triggers the immune system to form new LS lesions in that exact spot.
Wait, really?
Yes. So friction from tight clothing, from riding a bike, or the trauma of painful sex acts as new sparks. It literally causes the disease to spread and worsen in those specific areas.
So just wearing tight jeans can literally cause a new lesion to form.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The psychological impact of that is just staggering. You have the constant looming fear of developing cancer.
Right.
You have severe, unrelenting itching that is notoriously worse at night, which leads to chronic insomnia and severe sleep deprivation.
And then you have the profound, devastating impact on sexual function and intimate relationships. The data says approximately 60% of women with LS experience significant sexual dysfunction.
This naturally leads to incredibly high rates of clinical anxiety and depression.
Yeah. Patients feel isolated, they feel completely broken, and they feel terrified of their own bodies.
It is a biological feedback loop from hell. Imagine being afraid to sit down or afraid to wear jeans and knowing that your fear and anxiety are actively keeping your sympathetic nervous system engaged.
It's a vicious cycle.
The pain and fear cause immense emotional stress. That emotional stress triggers the fight or flight response that floods the body with cortisol, taxing the immune system.
Right, which causes more inflammation and oxidative stress.
Which makes the physical tearing and scarring worse.
Exactly. Yeah. Treating the physical skin without treating the psychological trauma in the nervous system is really only doing half the job.
You will constantly be fighting an uphill battle against your own body's stress response.
First, though, we have to establish the medical baseline. We're not saying you can simply, meditate your way out of an active autoimmune flare.
No, definitely not.
Ultra-potent topical corticosteroids like clobetasol are absolutely essential. They're the fire hose.
They're the gold standard to stop the immediate inflammation, halt the scarring process, and reduce that cancer risk.
Exactly. But medicine alone often isn't enough to maintain long-term remission. You need to actively alter the internal environment.
Right. You have to actively engage the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode, to counter that sympathetic fight or flight overdrive.
And the primary biological superhighway for the parasympathetic nervous system is the vagus nerve.
Ah, the vagus nerve.
Yeah. It wanders from your brainstem down through your chest and into your abdomen. By engaging in deep diaphragmatic breathing, grounding exercises, and targeted mindfulness, you actually stimulate this nerve.
And when the vagus nerve is stimulated, it releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, right?
Yes. This physically binds to receptors on your immune cells and tells them to stop producing inflammatory cytokines.
So it is a literal biological braking system for the immune system.
It really is.
Yeah.
It also helps balance hormones, which is critical because, as we mentioned earlier, hormones like estrogen are vital for keeping vulvar tissue hydrated, thick, and resilient.
And alongside vagus nerve activation, our sources highlight the importance of psychological therapies, things like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT and psychosexual counseling.
Right, because these aren't just about, talking it out.
No, they are proven, structured therapies to help patients reframe their anxiety, regulate their emotional responses so they don't trigger that cortisol dump, and gradually improve sexual functioning.
Then we have to look at physical and dietary stress reduction.
Okay, so physically, you have to remove friction to avoid that Kobner phenomenon we discussed.
Exactly. That means loose clothing, undyed toilet paper, and ditching the harsh soaps and heavily fragranced body washes.
You want to remove any external irritants that could trigger an immune response.
And nutritionally, reducing dietary stressors is huge.
Like cutting out high-sugar, highly processed inflammatory foods, incorporating antioxidants and omega-3s to fight off those free radicals causing the oxidative stress.
Yes. And our sources even note emerging theories in holistic dermatology, like Dr. Gundry's research on leaky gut syndrome and lectins.
Oh, lectins. How do those play a role?
Well, the theory there involves a mechanism called molecular mimicry. Lectins are proteins found in certain plants, essentially acting as a natural defense mechanism for the plant.
Okay.
If someone has a compromised gut lining, which, by the way, is often exacerbated by chronic stress, these lectins can leak into the bloodstream.
And because the immune system flags them as foreign invaders, it attacks.
Right. But the molecular mimicry part means that parts of these plant proteins share an amino acid sequence that structurally looks incredibly similar to human tissue proteins.
Oh, wow. So the immune system gets confused.
Exactly. It starts attacking the lectin, but then it turns around and continues attacking the skin, thinking it's the exact same threat.
That's incredible. But while the dietary research on specific triggers like lectins is still evolving and highly individualized, the broader clinical consensus is crystal clear, isn't it?
It is. An anti-inflammatory diet supports a calmer immune system and reduces the overall burden on the body.
So what does this all mean? It means you can't just fight the wave of stress. You have to learn to ride it and regulate your biology.
Yes.
But I have to push back here for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
When we start talking about deep breathing and cutting out certain vegetables, it sounds suspiciously like we are saying, just relax and eat a salad and your severe tissue-destroying autoimmune disease will magically go away.
I get that.
Which feels incredibly dismissive to someone sitting there in severe tearing pain.
Well, this raises an important question, and it is a vital distinction to make for anyone listening. Mindfulness, vagal nerve stimulation, and dietary changes are not a replacement for medical intervention.
Right.
Going back to our house fire analogy, if your house is fully engulfed in flames, you need the fire hose. That is your clobetasol. You need the heavy artillery to put out the blaze.
Absolutely.
But stress management, trauma therapy, and diet are about clearing the dry brush from around the house. It is a biological requirement to stop your own nervous system from constantly pouring gasoline on an autoimmune fire.
That makes total sense. You need both to rebuild the house safely.
Exactly.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. We started this deep dive with a stack of medical papers, clinical guidelines, and holistic notes, really trying to understand a very specific, incredibly painful condition.
And what we discovered is that stress isn't just a fleeting feeling in your head.
No, it is a chemical reality. It is a powerful biological force that can alter your immune system, break down your cellular DNA through oxidative stress, and physically scar your skin.
It proves, in the most tangible way possible, that the mind and body are not separate entities. They are a single, continuous, tightly woven feedback loop.
So if you or someone you know is dealing with a chronic condition like lichen sclerosus, remember that managing your mental health and emotional stress isn't just self-care in the frivolous spa day sense of the word.
Yeah, not at all.
It is literal, vital preventative medicine for your cells.
It is about actively giving your body the safety signals it needs to stop attacking itself.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We've seen how deeply the nervous system and the immune system are intertwined in this specific devastating skin condition.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, as we continue to map out the vagus nerve and truly understand the biological impact of psychological trauma, could the future of treating all autoimmune diseases eventually shift?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Could we move away from just suppressing the immune system with heavy, exhausting drugs and instead learn how to physically rewire our neurological response to stress from the inside out?
It is the frontier of autoimmune medicine.
It really is. So the next time you feel those shoulders creeping up to your ears after a deeply stressful week, take a long, deep breath.
Definitely.
Because relaxing those muscles isn't just a quick break for your mind, it might just be the most important thing you do for your cells today.